theistic orientation of a life is almost always a decision by the will. Man no longer wishes to reflect on his relationship with God because he himself intends to become God. His model is Prometheus. So what you just heard there was a quote from Cardinal Robert Sarah, who grew up in Africa. What we're going to be talking about today is postmodernism, and more specifically the Catholic response to postmodernism. Now, what is postmodernism? Well, at the end of World War II, when all the fascism with like Hitler and Mussolini was going around, there was a new train of thought. Now, this train of thought went all the way from people like Derrida, who said that there should be deconstructionist postmodernism, which means the only way to achieve equality is to absolutely tear down the systems that have been made and remake them. Now, this thought changed into a literary movement at the end of the 20th century and into the 21st. It has since made its way into our politics with things like identity politics and movements that value race as the main component. So another philosopher that was more of an existentialist and is considered the first existentialist, named Kierkegaard, actually brings a good point about postmodernism, which is that it's such a broad sort of umbrella philosophy where things like nihilism, existentialism, and all of the more doom and gloom philosophies about meaninglessness and purposefulness kind of can fit under postmodernism. So Kierkegaard was an existentialist. So Kierkegaard also was going against the church, and he was a pretty big mover in the Protestant theology. So he kind of ripped the church up and down for, and thought them foolish for the notion of faith, as people are just basically animals, and we have such animalistic reflexes and instincts that it doesn't make sense for us to have faith in some type of higher purpose and have a meaningful purpose in life. So this, again, goes along with postmodernism, as stated before, that there's such a meaninglessness and purposelessness that God cannot exist.
Just a little background for The Dark Knight. The main plot line is basically that the Joker comes into Arkham City and basically starts bringing anarchy into the whole city, leading to like explosions and blowing up a hospital. Harvey Dent, at the start of the movie, was one of the main characters against the Joker, and he goes against the mob, which the Joker is a part of. But later in the movie, there's a big scene where he gets his face burned off and then goes actually with the Joker. The Joker kind of shows anarchy and chaos, and the Batman and Alfred are kind of the people that work against him in the movie and succeed in the end. So that's just a little background.
A long time ago, I was in Burma. My friends and I were working for the local government. They were trying to buy the loyalty of tribal leaders by bribing them with precious stones. But their caravans were being raided in a forest north of Rangoon by a bandit. So we went looking for the stones. But in 6 months, we never met anyone who traded with him. One day, I saw a child playing with a ruby the size of a tangerine. The bandit had been throwing them away.
So why steal them?
Well, because he thought it was good sport. Because some men aren't looking for anything logical, like money. They can't be bought, bullied, reasoned, or negotiated with. Some men just want to watch the world burn.
In the clip that we just watched, Alfred tries to explain the Joker's actions to Bruce Wayne through an anecdote. This anecdote is about a jewel thief in Burma who stole jewels from certain mines but never gave them to anyone and only gave them to children, showing the chaos and what it can lead to through postmodernism.
Introduce a little anarchy. Upset the established order, and everything becomes chaos. I'm an agent of chaos. Oh, and you know the thing about chaos? It's fear.
In the next clip we watch, the Joker comes up to Harvey Dent and talks to him about rejecting law and order and going into more of a postmodernism ideas. Postmodernism basically shows and goes with the ideas of chaos and takes away against the ideas of law and order. The Joker says that he is an agent of chaos, which is seen through him pointing a gun at his head, showing that he has no real morals in life and finds no truth.
Here we are in a chapel, which is a very fitting setting for this next topic that I'm going to discuss. Right now I'm going to be talking about the Catholic response to postmodernism. Now, one of the best articles that this response can be found is actually in the United States Declaration of Independence, which describes the human's God-given and natural rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Now, postmodernists would disagree with this because they don't believe that there's any truth, and they also don't believe that humans have any inherent value. Catholics would agree with the Declaration of Independence because they believe that God did give us the rights and we're made in God's image, showing that humans do indeed have inherent value instead of just being a random species that evolved over time. In the book God or Nothing by Cardinal Robert Serra, he describes how postmodernists work as agents of chaos in this world, which makes a lot of sense when you think about it, because they believe that life has no true meaning and there is no truth to be found at all. And this way of thinking ultimately leads to chaos no matter what. A much better way of thinking and to live your life is a life rooted in faith and in God. This way, your life does indeed have meaning. Another example of the Catholic's response to postmodernism is the book Lord of the Flies by William Golding. This book is a great example of the Catholic's response because it is mostly about the human nature embedded in each one of us. Postmodernists believe that humans do not have any inherent nature and all of our morals and everything else about us is built up by our society over time. However, both Lord of the Flies and Catholics believe that God did in fact embed a nature into us, and this is described mostly through the analogy of the beast throughout Lord of the Flies. In the quote you just saw, it's a scene from the Lord of the Flies where the Christ figure Simon is walking through a field and notice the boar's head on a spike that the boys have planted there. This boar is called the Lord of the Flies and represents the beast. Now, this beast is talking to Simon in his hallucination and explains that the beast is not actually a tangible thing in the real world, but rather is the human nature inside of each of these boys and their primitive desires and instincts. This goes against postmodernist beliefs because they do not think that humans are born with any innate nature, but aligns nearly perfectly with Catholics' beliefs because they believe God embedded human nature into each of us.